News at 8, I'm Sally Burdett. Good evening. We lead with this. The Johannesburg father who shot and killed his son at school says he will be haunted by what he did for the rest of his life. Sibusiso Emmanuel Shabalala appeared in the Lenasia Magistrates Court today on a charge of murder. He was released on a warning after applying for bail so he can bury his son Luyanda. Malungelo Boy reports on the tragic accident that robbed the family of such a bright young life.
A situation no family should have to face, a father in court for killing his son. Sibusiso Emmanuel Shabalala says it was all a mistake, that he shot Luyanda thinking he was a hijacker. Shabalala's grief is palpable even before court starts. All the 51-year-old wants is bail so that he can bury his child. In an affidavit read out in court, he details how he fired a shot at his son, also how nurses tried to resuscitate him without success. Shabalala says the death of his son will stay with him forever. He says he has no intentions of not facing up to what he has done and will attend his trial.
The applicant has handed himself over to the police and has quite clearly cooperated with the police at all times. Ultimately, the decision as to whether this matter will proceed to trial stage will lie with the Director of Public Prosecution. I think that the interests of justice will be best served by releasing the applicant on warning.
The NPA says there was no reason not to release him on warning.
As the state, we did not oppose bail, and we also recommended to the court that we actually don't have a problem even if he's released on warning.
After a day of extraordinary emotions, Sibusiso Emmanuel Shabalala is with his family tonight. His wish to be granted an opportunity to bury his son, whom he says he shot by mistake, granted. He'll return to court on the 24th of July. Malungelo Boy, Lenasia.
To Cape Town, triple axe murderer Henry van Breda is to be locked up for decades. Today he was handed 3 life sentences for murdering his parents and brother. The 23-year-old also received an additional 15 years for the attempted murder of his sister Madly and a year for obstructing justice. On Monday he was found guilty of the 2015 murder of his mother Teresa, father Martin and brother Rudy. The 3 were killed in their home at the luxury De Zalze Golf estate outside Stellenbosch. Artinasi was in court today.
On count 1, the murder of Rudy van Breda, you are sentenced to life imprisonment. On count 2, the murder of Martin van Breda, you are sentenced to life imprisonment. On count 3, the murder of Teresa van Breda, you are sentenced to life imprisonment. For the attempted murder of Mali van Breda, you are sentenced to 15 years imprisonment.
These words sealing the fate of Henry van Breda. But the moment was short-lived. His defence indicated that they will apply for leave to appeal both his sentence and conviction. Judge Siraj Desai says Van Breda's personal circumstances, such as his youth, does not warrant a lesser sentence. He says Van Breda failed to take the court into his confidence.
It was a cold-blooded murder. The violence was excessive and gratuitous. It was intended to cause maximum harm. The 3 victims died with the wounds caused by the axe you wielded against them. The 4th survived, albeit with serious injuries. The clear intent was to kill her as well. At best for you, we can assume that the crimes were not committed in a vacuum, but were the product of some disgruntlement in the family.
Desai says the sentence fits the violent nature of the crimes committed.
These attacks display a high level of innate cruelty and an almost unprecedented degree of disregard for the welfare of one's own family, one's parents and siblings.
The application for leave to appeal will be heard on the 27th of June. Artie Narsi, the Western Cape High Court.
More gruesome details emerged today at the Western Cape High Court about the murder of 3-year-old Courtney Peters. A DNA expert was on the stand today. Mortimer Saunders is standing trial for the murder. He's confessed to killing the 3-year-old but denies the toddler's death was planned. Leanne Jansen reports, but please be warned, the details of this case are very grim.
Lutando Tia testified how he found Mortimer Saunders' semen on Courtney Peters' top. He says it was a 100% DNA match. He says male DNA was also found in a vaginal swab conducted on Courtney Peters' body, as well as a swab taken from her inner thigh, but that it was too little to comprehensively deduce whether or not it was Saunders' DNA. Saunders stands accused of murdering and raping 3-year-old Courtney Peters. He's pleaded guilty to murder, but says it wasn't premeditated murder. He's also pleaded guilty to performing sexual acts on her corpse. The trial has been adjourned until Tuesday, when the state is expected to call its next witness. Leanne Jansen at the Western Cape High Court.
To Durban now, and former President Jacob Zuma is set to appear at the KwaZulu-Natal High Court tomorrow. He's facing charges of corruption, fraud, money laundering and racketeering relating to the multi-billion rand arms deal of the late 1990s. Now, supporters of Jacob Zuma are gathering at Albert Park in Durban for a night vigil. And our reporter there is Samkele Masego. Good evening, Samkele. I understand it's very quiet there. Of course, it may pick up later. But I was just wondering if you've been able to speak to any of Jacob Zuma's supporters to find out if they're in the same sort of fighting spirit as Zuma was yesterday at the COSAS gathering when he told people not to provoke him.
Well, Sally, at this point in time, we've spoken to a number of them. We've spoken to his son, Edward Zuma, who says, Aluta continua, the fight goes on for the former President Jacob Zuma. I'm just going to also ask my colleague, Sandile, right now, to just pan towards his right-hand side and show you Super Zuma, the former provincial secretary of the ANC in the province. You'd see him there in the black hoodie. He just glimpsed towards our right-hand side, towards the camera right now. He's contesting to be the provincial secretary of the ANC again this weekend. So he's here to support Nxamalala, Jacob Zuma, as he says. He's here on behalf of the Nxamalala family to show support to former President Jacob Zuma. So it does seem as if the fighting spirit is there for those who support the former president and who are inside the Nxamalala clan.
Yes, it is a big weekend for the KwaZulu-Natal ANC as well. But just getting back to the court case, what are we expecting to happen in court tomorrow? We do know that the French arms company Tint, who's co-accused, has asked for these charges to be dropped. What is likely to happen?
Well, Sally, what we can say is that it's most likely going to be arguments with those representing Tint, the company that is, or Tellis, the company that is supposedly having paid bribes to the former President Jacob Zuma. They will argue on why the case should be dropped in its totality, and they will supposedly be supported by the former President Jacob Zuma in wanting the case to be dropped.
Thank you so much. That was Samkele Masego in Durban, reporting on the night vigil for former President Jacob Zuma. He, of course, is back in court again tomorrow. Still ahead on E! News, Zama Zama miners given rights to mine legally in Kimberley. Former National Police Commissioner General Khomotso Phahlane is no longer an accused person, at least for now. Today, the National Prosecuting Authority withdrew its fraud and corruption case against the former top cop, his wife and businessman Geraint Snyman in the Specialised Commercial Crimes Court in Pretoria. This came after the court denied the NPA's request for a 3-month postponement. The magistrate agreed with the defence, stating that any lengthy delay without certainty of a fixed trial date is prejudicial prejudicial to the accused. The MPA says the scope of its investigation has broadened, which is why they need more time. The state can re-enroll the matter at a later stage. It's a dig in the right direction. The Department of Mineral Resources is starting to eliminate illegal mining by giving Zamazamas the right to mine in certain areas. Today, a Kimberley community was handed legal papers giving them the right to mine without disruption. Moteo Kharipe was there.
We are not Zamazamas, we are legal miners. A day of celebration for artisanal miners that have been trading in the darkness of the black market. The artisanal miners successfully negotiated a tailings mining resource dump from Ikapa Mining and now have access to 600 hectares to mine for themselves.
I have said even before that what we have here today, comrade, is a trophy. And we should actually make sure that we preserve it so that those who will be coming after us, they must actually come and see this trophy that we have actually received today.
The deal will see 600 hectares of land handed over to the Batho Pele Cooperative, with training and funding provided by the Department of Mineral Resources. But the Deputy Minister admits this case study may not work for other Zamazama communities.
This thing can become very popular. You would have seen that there is a lot of activity in Harding, in KZN, for gold that is being said to be discovered there. Okay, there are tests that are happening to check, all the profile of that. But now people also start to say, Deputy Minister, you must come here as well.
The Minerals Council commended the initiative but says the mining industry is still losing billions from illegal activities. There's already interest from other miners like De Beers. Oliphant says other mining communities are keen to know when their turn will come. Before today, mining for this Zamazama would have been a difficult and dangerous process, having to face police and mining security. But after being handed 2 permits today to mine on this very land, miners like him feel it's time to mine with some dignity. Moteo Kharipe in Kimberley.
Let's recap your top stories this evening. The devastated Johannesburg father who shot and killed his son at school has been released on warning so he can bury his son. Judge Siraj Desai hands Henry van Breda 3 life sentences for what he describes as a violent and cruel crime against his own family. And finally, a South African scientist is making history tonight. Dr. Robert Guess has unveiled 2 fossils which are believed to be 360 million years old. Now, the bones belong to tetrapods, some of the first creatures to walk on 4 legs. Michael Murillo went to have a look.
Life as a crocodile is pretty good. You can soak up the sun. And if that's not your thing, well, the pool is right next door. It all sounds so simple, but this kind of luxury doesn't come easy.
This is the Glythrum of Tutusius.
Scientists say it took millions of years before animals moved between water and land. Dr. Robert Guess discovered 2 fossils near Grahamstown. These animals evolved from fish, whose front and back paired fins developed into legs.
These things are 360 million years old. So they're 70 million years older than anything with legs in Africa before. And they are 120 million years older than the earliest dinosaur.
This group of creatures provides crucial clues about life on Earth. In fact, experts say they could be our ancestors.
Well, the interesting thing is that you can actually match every bone in your body to a bone in one of these creatures' bodies, 1-on-1.
All the other tetrapod fossils have been found outside of Africa. This discovery is a game changer, suggesting they also emerged here at home. Maybe it's just as well. Otherwise, for these crocs, there would be no fun in the sun. Michael Marilia, Johannesburg.
And that's your news at 8. Take care. Good night.